Freshian Rucker, before we do anything, you are a man who coaches business owners. You've had a podium finish at FMG Worlds, and you recently did the HYROX in Brisbane as well. Which one out of those three scared you the most?
Probably coaching business owners. Yeah, coaching
Really?
business owners. Yeah, because you never know what
Wh-
you're gonna get.
yeah. Yeah, so true.
Mm,
I guess the others are more like predictable in terms of you get out of it what you put in, right?
absolutely.
And for anyone who doesn't know Fresh yet, he's been a long-term TRM client. So I have watched his journey up close for the last few years, since I've known him, and it's pretty incredible to see, the amount of effort that you put into everything you do. But did you want to describe yourself in one or two sentences to someone who just jumped into this conversation and they don't know you?
Yeah, ultimately, I am someone that looks to solve problems, have a good time, but then also really tote the line between focus and play. That's probably pretty much puts me in a nutshell because I think without play, focus doesn't feel tight enough. But then without focus, you haven't really earned the right to play. And depending upon how you focus, that regulates everything. That regulates the way in which your energy is, that regulates the way that you think. But then also marrying the focus and the play together allows you to build something quite substantial because if you're in the energy of play, the fun, I mean, not the fun, but the focus will feel quite easeful versus it feeling like something daunting and quite hard.
100%. And I think that's such an interesting way to look at it. Do you feel like you have different seasons within your journey or like within your years where you're really focused on one thing or the other? Or is this kind of like structured within your days and within your weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. Every season is different for me. I do have different seasons where I'm focused on certain elements of my life. Honestly, I wish I could focus on everything in each season, but it's almost practically impossible if you want a good outcome within that area that you're focusing on.
Yeah, totally. And have you ever had a moment or like a really low point where you just genuinely considered pulling back from all of it or one of these aspects?
Yeah, 100% all the time. I think it's human, to have those moments and to be really honest with yourself when you're having those moments because without the honesty, you will just walk past those moments and try to push through and that will hurt you more than honestly acknowledging those moments. And sometimes it helps me get through when I acknowledge the fact that I'm having, a really low time or difficult time, or I might be in a dark space where I don't see myself pushing through. And I just want to say, hey, let's pull out. And then sometimes you actually need to just actually pull out. And it's totally fine.
Yeah, and when it comes down to those moments as well, are you having those conversations just internally? Like, is that internal dialogue? Or do you actually speak that out loud and you talk to someone like your coach or someone else and try and figure that out together?
Recently, I've been able to talk to like my coach and stuff like that. But in the past, I'm not sure. I have to go back and like right now, as I'm thinking about it, quite often it would be an internal sort of thing from my past as an athlete and in a person, I would quite often internalize certain things in the way that I thought about pushing through things and I would push through them. And that wasn't really what I wanted to do. And then as I got older and I slowed down a little bit more, I would also talk to others. And I think it's twofold. You have to know who you can talk to that's going to guide you to the best decision possible for you. Only you really know. But then at the same time, you do need that soundboard in order to, decompartmentalize what you're thinking to yourself, right?
Absolutely. I totally get that as well. And I think sometimes it's hard when you are a driven individual and you do have goals to figure out like when is the right time to actually pull back and when is the right time to push through. Like, am I just going through a little bit of a rough patch and then we're going to come out the other side and we're still going to achieve that goal? Or do we actually need to pull back and maybe reassess the date of that goal? So, how do you kind of figure out yourself whether it's like you're just, having a moment where you're a little bit less motivated or you're just going through a short rough patch or when it's actually time to pull back and maybe change the date of that goal that you're working towards?
Yeah, it's that's a really good question because a lot of the times when we're looking at things that are measurable, it's quite logical. Okay, if it's a calculation that X plus Y doesn't give us Z, then this is what we do instead. Whereas when it becomes more emotional, you get a chance to sit with the energy of what you're feeling because the calculation could make sense. But if the energy doesn't make sense, why should we push forward? And that's really where I guess the last part of my life, not last part of my life, but the most recent parts of my life have been it's okay, yeah, logically it makes sense, but energetically, how does it feel to go ahead and do the thing or not do the thing? And if not doing the thing doesn't feel great, let's imagine what not doing the thing will feel like after the thing has surpassed. Because sometimes it's really just about being in the flow of the moment and being there and having that fear of missing out. Whereas if I am missing out, it's actually telling me yes, like me telling the thing no. Okay, this is not what we're doing at the moment. It's not going anywhere. But then my fear of missing out is saying, hey, but we said we were going to do this and we want to do this and everyone you know is going to be there and all the things that you've worked towards, are gonna you're gonna waste them. Let's see what that feels like after. Because if I'm gonna feel better for missing out, then cool. Like, let's miss out because my body, my mind, my soul, it needs rest. And then that gives me the ability to pivot my energy somewhere else. And then the logic actually starts to make more sense because it's like now I see the calculation. It made sense before we decided to say no. But now that I did say no, I have more of an energetic fuel base to go, all right, now we can do X, Y, and it's going to equal Z to the 10th power.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes you don't realize the benefit of saying no or the positives of that until after that's actually happened and the next opportunity opens up. So a
That's
lot of
right.
people, yeah, and I feel like a lot of people separate being an athlete or being an entrepreneur, but you're obviously doing both and you work with a lot of business owners as well. Do you separate these two identities or do you feel like you can like have them working together as one?
That's a really good question. Can you have them working together as one? It's a twofold answer. Yes, you can. And sometimes you cannot because athletes make great coaches, but not all coaches make great athletes and vice versa. And sometimes as a person looking after entrepreneurs, it's good to show them the path of of a challenge or something that's going to be uncomfortable. And as an athlete, that's what you go through. You go through uncomfortable challenges in order to win. But then sometimes the athlete needs to sit back into the coach's seat and see the drawing board as a bird's eye view or as a part of the team, I would say. So you look at like a LeBron James or Kobe, those two, I love going back and referring to these guys because LeBron literally coaches from both the bench and his position, whatever position he's playing on the court. And so to answer that, yes, you can be the athlete and coach individuals at the same time, especially in business, because sometimes business owners need to understand like I too am going through what they're going through, or I have also gone through what they're going through. And then being able to help them through the pain of what they're feeling from a coach's perspective of, okay, hey, look, we did say we wanted to win tonight. The score is 55 to 65. We're down by 10 in the third quarter. What can we do? How can we come together as a team and push forward towards this goal? And even if we lose, what did we learn? And how can we take this into the next game? And that's kind of the conversation that's happening with entrepreneurs and business owners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can kind of get benefits from both as well that help with the other area. Like I know personally, like going through a bodybuilding journey or a competitive journey helps me with patience and delayed gratification. And all of those things filter into being a business owner or being an entrepreneur as well. So I think there's like benefits from both that will help you in the other areas, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I think that's the same. Like, I see that the benefits of everything you just said. Yes.
So take us back to Worlds, FMG Worlds last year. Walk us through that day. How were you feeling going into the show? How were you feeling stepping on stage?
Ooh, I actually haven't had that question come up from me yet, or well, from someone else. Of
Mhm.
course, I've internalized that before. how did I feel going into that day? It was a very unique feeling. It was a bit of a, how do you say the word? Nostalgic sort of feeling. I've done a handful of worlds before. I've been in this space for a very long time. I've been an athlete all my life and just really reading the playbook. And I think that's one thing that in bodybuilding is un not unheard of, but it's not talked about enough. Is like reading the playbook because it is an individual sport. But as much as an individual you are, you do have a team behind you, helping you or alongside you, I should say. They're next to you, they're pushing you along the way, they're encouraging you. But then also you have the other competitors that are also potentially, hopefully, doing the same thing. Right? They're wanting to win, and that day or those days leading into the competition, it was all about reading the playbook and understanding two things. How am I really feeling about this? It's really interesting. Like almost every comp, no matter if it's bodybuilding, HYROX, track and field, a business challenge, the feeling that I have is quite similar, right? And the feeling is, do I have what it takes right now in this moment to actually go for it? How bad do I want it? All right. That's what I'm asking myself. How bad do I really want this? And to be honest, and I haven't voiced this publicly, like me and Christos have talked about this one on one before. And I told him straight, I said, hey, man, look, honestly, I think these guys wanted it way more than I did. And that
Interesting.
was an interesting statement. Like, what? It's like, what? Fresh? What you mean? Like, it was funny because I got the thing right here. All right. I got the trophy here that I didn't really want to keep, just being honest with you, because it's third place. And that's great, but at the end of the day, it's like I had to sit with the feeling of, bro, how bad do you really want this today? Like how you've wanted it this bad for so long. And then on this day, how bad do you want it? So going into that, that was the conversation. And then the answer to that showed on stage, right? It didn't show through maybe it did show through my prep, right? Like, oh, did you do these things? And why didn't you do these things? But on the day, Fresh, how bad did you really want it? And so to answer your question, I felt quite calm. Right? I didn't have higher levels of anxiety. And I believe it's because I had already envisioned how bad I wanted it. And I didn't want it as bad as I wanted to breathe. And I sat with that. I wanted other things as bad as I wanted to breathe. And it made me really honor my journey, but then also the guys before me, like the guys that won, I was like, man, I was really inspired by how bad they wanted it because I could take that same sort of attitude and apply it elsewhere in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, obviously, third in the world against a stacked lineup is still absolutely
Yeah,
incredible.
stacked.
But how did you deal, I guess, with coming third? Because obviously, during your prep, you were going into it, you wanted to be world champion. That's what you're working
Absolutely.
towards. How did you deal with that? And how did you feel about that placing after the show?
I felt like I deserved it to a degree. Like, first, the emotions hit first before the logic comes into play. That's why I said what I said earlier. It's like, let's look at the emotions first before we can decide if the calculation actually makes sense logically. And in this instance, the emotions really made sense before the logic even kicked in of like, oh, we got third. We plan to win. Everything we do, we desire to win. But on this day, how much did I really want it? And then seeing that and feeling that hit me harder after the fact. The emotions kind of like wore off and I go, okay, well, it makes sense, Fresh. Like, this is what you did. This is the life that you live. And maybe, just maybe, this area of your life has been completed, right? And everything doesn't have to be completed by a win, an external win. Because internally for me, I felt like a champion. Like actually felt like the world champ. At the end of the day, I was like, oh man, like out of all of the things that I've done, I don't know any person in bodybuilding that lives in Bali who's not Indonesian and preps for a bodybuilding show under the constraints of living on an island. I don't know anyone who has done that successfully that's not Balinese. So that was a win for me. You know what I mean? And you've been to Bali before, you know what it's like. It's not an easy place to prep, is it?
No. That adds a whole 'nother element of difficulty to the prep for sure. What is something about competing at that level that nobody really talks about, like something unglamorous that is part of competing to such a high level?
It's lonely. It's very lonely. You don't get the sort of camaraderie that a lot of people think you get when it comes to bodybuilding. That's just on the deck. All right. And that's just on social media. But when it's just you and the dumbbells and the barbells, it's 5 in the morning. You got to go do steps. You got to eat meals. That gruesome grind becomes a room full of echoes of you huffing and puffing, thinking out loud, getting up early, hearing, in your head, okay, you need to lose 500 grams this week. All right. Just need to lose five. It's like, what? If you like someone who's listening to this, would you like 500 grams? Like, what? You concerned about that? It's like, well, that's the name of the game. It's bit by bit, baby. It's not, 2 kilos here, 3 kilos there. And that mental grind becomes quite lonely because no one else around you is having that conversation. And I don't blame them. I don't expect them to be having that conversation. And that's one of the parts I feel it does get talked about a little bit, but what the loneliness does to a person as far as their perspective, it really puts them into one of these sort of blinders on tunnel vision, which is really good for the sake of success and where you're going in your life, but then also or where you're going in your competition life. But then the strain and constraints it can put onto all of your relationships, what it can put onto your social life and your mental aspects. So you have to be really, tuned in and have the right people around you. Otherwise, it can get even lonelier.
Yeah, I could absolutely agree with that. Like everything you're doing is so focused on this goal and so focused on prep. And obviously, your energy's a bit lower as well when you're going through a prep. So it's harder to put that effort into other things as well.
Right.
So, absolutely get that and completely resonate with it. For someone who's going through just like a transformation journey, say they're wanting to lose 10 kilos, they don't want to go on stage, they just want to feel a bit fitter, healthier. How would you recommend that they actually build up that discipline? Like, say they've already got their meal plan training, but they're struggling with the discipline to actually stick to it.
Yeah, good question. They need to have a strong why, a very strong purpose behind why they want this goal. Because if you don't have a strong why, the foundation is not built on anything solid, it's just gonna fall through. All right. And that discipline shows up when you remember your why, but then it also it gets a chance to pivot because if you only have discipline around, let's just say, eating your meals and going to the gym and doing your steps because you want to look better, like that's really good, right? But if you don't have the discipline to acknowledge when you're not feeling good or to acknowledge when, you're not energetic enough to make it to that session, you need to rest instead, or you're not disciplined enough to have those hard conversations with yourself or your partner during that time, then you got to revisit your why because it becomes quite a touch and go sort of subject of, oh, I want to get fit. And I've been there before. It's like, well, as a past functional athlete, my why was just always to be better at my sport, like to be faster, to jump further, to be like all those sort of things, and to make my team proud, right? But then it became more so about my health, and it's like, oh shit, okay, I've never not been healthy. I mean, not I've never not been unhealthy, but then going down certain paths of my life as you grow up and you do certain things in your life, you can start to see what your actions and behaviors, how they can impact you. So that's kind of what drove me to where I'm at today. It's like, oh shit, my health isn't just for me, like for my sake, it's for my partners, for my future children, my family, etc. So that purpose, it changes over time, but that purpose is much more solid than I want to make my team proud. I want to jump farther. I want to run faster. It's like, okay, yeah, I can be disciplined for that. But when it's for the responsibility of others, it's much more potent.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like your why got a lot deeper and more purposeful as the years went on, and it still is developing as well. Can you walk us through like your journey, what you competed in at the start, why you kind of got into fitness, and then how that's evolved over time, bringing us to competing in HYROX. Like, why HYROX?
Man, we talking 3 days, 3 decades of, athleticism, 3 decades of competing. I'll make it short, though. Basketball was my very first sport at the age of, 3. And then from about 3 to about 9, I got into other sports like baseball, a little bit of football, which, was never really the sport that I was gonna do because of the safety levels. And then I got into swimming. My godparents were swim coaches. My goddad was actually a football and track and field coach. So that's how the track and field stuff came into play. And then after the track and field stuff kind of happened, I think like bodybuilding was like on the horizon for me. As a kid, I always just used to watch the Arnold Schwarzenegger like magazine. I would look at the magazines in Walmart. So I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and so I would be like going down the magazine aisle and looking at all these guys, Lou Ferrigno, Arnold and all these guys. I'm like, wow, like what is this? And I just always thought it was a life that no one else could do. I just thought it was like, oh yeah, cool, these guys, that's what they do. And then once track and field was over, CrossFit became like a big thing back in that time. So this is gonna give my age away. So back in I think it was like 2012, 13, somewhere in there, CrossFit really had made a name for itself. And so I jumped into CrossFit straight away. I didn't like it because it mimicked all of the strength and conditioning I had ever done for all of the sports that I played. And for me, it just didn't make sense. Logically, I was like, well, I feel like we're just training. Like I was like, it's just training. How do you compete in training? I'm happy to compete with my teammates in strength and conditioning because I get to see what they're made out of. I know they can make that play. But as far as like anyone else, I don't know you guys. Why do I care about your run rep max? Why do I care about how many burpees you can do? Why do I care? Why? What's the point? So it went straight over my head, and I got out. And then I was really good friends with the manager of the gym that I trained at. And he was like, "Hey, you should bodybuild." I was like, "What?" Nah, that's for like people, like real people, like famous people. He's like, "Nah, like you can get into bodybuilding yourself." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'll check it out." And Dexter Jackson came to Memphis, and he had the Dexter Jackson Classic. And I was like, "Oh, cool." I just signed up. I signed up. I didn't know anything from left to right. And then I went to the comp, and I'm like seeing all of these people carrying around Tupperware and scales and oil. What is going on? Like they're all like super jacked, like dry. I'm like, wow, how do they look like that? You know? And so I didn't compete. Even though I paid and all that, so I didn't compete. And that was when it hit me. I was like, oh, this is something different. I've never even known to this degree that this is what's involved. All I thought for myself was hypertrophy training, eating the food, doing cardio. Ooh, let's just do that. And that actually changed like that moment changed my perspective of bodybuilding back in, I think it was 2012, 2012, 13, somewhere in there. It changed my perspective of what the sport really meant. And then I dove into partaking as someone that was going to be really serious at the sport. I took it to the highest level possible. And the reason why is because I became really um, hyper fixated on developing my physique. I always wanted to develop an elite physique that could do elite things. So when I say this, I mean, I wanted to run at an elite speed. I wanted to swim and jump and all these things at a higher level. So I would do whatever I needed to do to figure out how that would work, whatever it was, the training, literally going to the science lab and jumping on pressure plates to find out how much pressure. So all that stuff fascinated me was like the next level. It's like, you do know if you eat like this and if you train like this and if you sleep like this, you can grow your body. And I'm like, what? Shit, like, let's do it. And I got so into that. And I think to answer the question towards the end, like, how did I get all the way from basketball, bodybuilding to HYROX? It was like the hero's journey. Eventually everything circles back around to home. And my home, sustainable wise, is functional training. And I it always was in my preps too. Like whenever functional training wasn't in my preps, I didn't feel my best. I might have looked great, but I didn't feel good. And then whenever functionality was in my preps, I felt the best and I looked the best. And HYROX, it just kind of winked at me one day. Like I was at the gym. Shout out to Bamboo Fitness here in Bali. I was there and I just went to the gym to do a leg session. I was like, oh, I got glutes and hammies. I'll do it here. I'll check this gym out. And I was seeing all the people. I'm like, what are they doing? Like, they're all like getting together and I was like, this looks cool, right? And I'm walking past the class and they're like, yeah, we're doing the HYROX class today. I'm like, what's that? And they just pointed to the board. And they got this big whiteboard, all the workouts on it. And I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, hmm, 15 cows by this. I'm like, okay, burpee broad jumps. Okay. I'm like, kettlebell. I'm like, damn, this ain't fun. I'm like, I love that. I was like, so forget this booty and hamstrings session that I'm gonna do. I'm jumping into I'm jumping into this class, and like I jumped into the class, not knowing what was on the menu for the day, which was quite familiar with my background. When I ran track, we never really knew the workout. Like we knew what it could be, but we never really knew exactly what the workout was going to be. So being in that sort of this setting, I was like, oh man, I really want to do this. So I jumped in. I had the best time of my life. And I was like, oh, okay. And someone said to me, oh, you would never do a HYROX doing like the way you moving. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was so funny. And like, can you imagine? I'm like 97 kilos at the time, jumping up and down, doing all this, sweating everywhere. And like one of the coaches said to me, you will never do a HYROX, with your body moving that way. And I was like, oh, really? And when people like, that's one thing about me, especially as an athlete or a competitor. If you tell me I'll never do anything, I will prove it to you that I will do the thing. And that was, for me, that's fun. I don't really take it that serious when someone says that, but I'm like, hold on, wait. Okay, cool. So it gave me more of a purpose. Like I said, back to the purpose. It's like, well, my why maybe at the time wasn't that big. It's like, well, because someone told you you couldn't do something. It's like, well, I mean, at, people are growing up right now being told that they can't do things. And sometimes that's all a person needs to drive them to success. That can be a big deal because self belief is a massive component to success. And having that just being like heard, and me and that person, we're friends. Like we laugh about it all the time. I'm like, remember you telling me I could? I was like, look what I just did, right? And I thank them for that. I thank them for that. So that's pretty much that in a nutshell, how I got from basketball, track and field, bodybuilding to high rocks.
Yeah, massive, massive journey, and doing everything at such a high level is just incredible. Is there a certain habit or a certain thing that you've carried the whole way through or picked up that has really helped you to achieve things to such a high level consistently?
Yeah, it's the way I talk to myself. Yep. It's been a thing since probably high school, like eighth, ninth grade, somewhere in there. Because like your coaches will say certain things to you and they're not always gonna be there. But you can have their voice with you. But then they can also say things that may not support. And I've been in the game long enough to where I've had coaches say things to me that I'm like, why would he say that? Okay, cool. Right. But then for myself, because I can only control what's happening internally for me. It's been talking to myself during workouts. And I don't know if a lot of people have that component, but even like today and yesterday I had an 8 kilometer run. Today I had 2 sets of 4 or 500 meter runs. It was a speed day. During that session of both of those sessions, I'm coaching myself through the process of, okay, look, this is where we're at. This is the pace. This is gonna hurt. Hold this. Use your legs. Rotary run, bro. It's okay. Breathe. Slow down. What do you have left in the tank? Okay, so you're going too fast right now. It's all good. It's okay. It's gonna hurt. Wow, this is really tough. Like, and there's things that come up. I'm like, wow, okay, okay. Do we need extra rest? No, we don't. Okay, keep going. But yes, we do. So all of these certain things are happening, but I can see the pattern has been because I have that voice of pushing myself and coaching myself and encouraging myself, and when to just shut it down. That's very important as well. Has helped me through so many tough spots physically and mentally.
Yeah, you can see how there's a big difference between coaching yourself and talking to yourself and having that internal dialogue versus doing something hard and just saying to yourself the whole time, this is hard, this hurts, like complaining within your head, which I'm sure a lot of people do. And I've been guilty of that in the past as well during certain cardio sessions. So I think that's really cool to have that insight into your mindset and like what you're actually saying to yourself.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard.
If someone listening to this right now is burnt out and they feel like their body and their business are suffering, what is the first thing you'd tell
Yeah,
them?
body and business is burning out. Damn. That's the first thing Imma say. It's like, "Damn, bro. Damn, sister girl, what you been doing?" But no, on a serious note, I am gonna ask a couple of questions. I do wanna know, like, what have they been doing? Where have they been sourcing their energy, and how have they been, putting the energy out? And what are the signs that they've received that tells them that they're burnt out, you know? And then maybe a couple of the signs that we hear all the time, you know, they're just exhausted physically and mentally. They've got fatigue throughout the day. They have 3 and 4 coffees and nothing's working. They're barely feeling like they're getting good sleep or quality sleep. They're probably ashy. I don't know if you ever heard that one before, but they're probably ashy. Like the skin is dry. Like when your skin is dry, that's like the first sign of like something going on internally. So I just tell them, like I would tell a person, hey, ground yourself in this time right now. Like, be here with me. Just slow down, even if it's just for 2 minutes. Let's just slow down and breathe. Let's just connect with that element that we all have access to. And just take a couple of moments to listen to yourself and see yourself. Even if you need to internalize that with a soft gaze, relaxing your shoulders, relaxing your jaw, and doing a full physical body scan internally and externally. And then let's start from there. What do you need? Do you need more rest? Do you need to map this whole thing out? Because it may be to where they've not fully sat down and looked at their must haves and nice to haves. And so, what's something that you cannot absolutely do without? Okay. Do you feel like you really can't do without, or someone, or is it your ego? So you have to be the one cooking all the meals. You have to be the one dropping the kids off everywhere. You have to be the one doing. You don't? Okay, that will be nice to have someone to do it. Can we get someone to do it, or can we deprioritize that so you can get a little extra rest? What does rest look like for you? Okay, let's shut it all down and let's just sit. And if we can just find 5 extra minutes 5 times a day, now we got almost half an hour of rest purely focused on you, but we may just have to break it down to 5 times a day at 5 minutes per moment. So that's pretty much and that's really how I do it with my business owners.
Yes, I love that. And I think on paper it sounds so simple when you put it like that, but sometimes you definitely need someone externally to have that external view and pull those answers out of you and help you with a plan to work through. So, where can people find you to work with you or just follow along for the ride, see what you're doing next?
Yes. Mainly, you can follow me on Instagram, Freshian Rucker. Then that'll take you to other pages of mine, like Frequency by Fresh and my Insight Timer. So, Insight Timer is a wellness app. You can find most of my meditations and breathwork daily practices on there. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
Amazing. And what's one final piece of advice for someone who has a goal, whether that's business or fitness, and they're not sure where to start?
Sit your ass down somewhere and just breathe, slow it down, and see the playing field. Because when you do that, that gives you the advantage to be able to make the moves that are necessary, not the moves that look good, not the moves that are shiny, not the ones that everyone else are doing. You know, your goals aren't their goals, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of your wisdom, sharing your story, and all these bits of advice that I think any listeners will get so much value from.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate you guys having me today as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And for our listeners as well, if you did enjoy this episode, then share it to your stories, send it to someone who could benefit from it as well. And don't forget to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Thanks so much.